The most important question in the Bible isn't how do I get to heaven? It's this: who do you say Jesus is? And your answer changes everything. Today, we're going to walk through John chapters 1 through 3 together. Most people read John 1:3 and miss the structure. I'm going to walk you through it, and at the end, I'll show you where to get the full study guide if you want to go deeper. Before we look at the text, you need to understand why John's gospel is different from the others. Matthew traces Jesus to Abraham. Mark jumps into the action. Luke gives history, but John goes back before creation itself. One question: who is Jesus? And his answer will either offend you or transform you. John tells us exactly why he wrote this gospel. Look at John 20, verse 31. This isn't a biography, it's an invitation. Believe Jesus is the Messiah and you'll have life, not existence, but abundant eternal life. That's what's at stake. Here is how these three chapters flow together. Chapter 1, who is Jesus? Chapter 2, what does he do? And chapter 3, how must we respond? Get chapter 1 wrong and everything else collapses. Let's look at John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Three massive claims. Miss them and you miss everything. Claim 1. Jesus is eternal. In the beginning was the Word, not created. He simply was. When the universe was spoken into existence, Jesus was already there. Claim 2. Jesus is in eternal relationship with the Father, face to face. And then claim 3. He is God, same essence, same nature. If you don't believe this, you're not believing John's Jesus. And this brings us back to the most important question in the Bible. Not what must I do to be saved? That question comes later. The first question is, who do you say Jesus is? Jesus asked his disciples this directly in Matthew 16. Your answer to that question determines everything. If Jesus is just a good teacher, you can take his advice or leave it. But if Jesus is God in human flesh, then you must bow your knee. You have no other option. The climax of John chapter 1 is verse 14. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. The eternal God who created galaxies learned to speak Aramaic from his mother. The infinite became finite. The Creator became a creature. This is the incarnation. God did not stay distant. He moved into the neighborhood. He experienced hunger, pain, tiredness, and temptation. And John says, we saw his glory. This is eyewitness testimony. Chapter 2 shows us what Jesus does. At a wedding in Cana, he turns water into wine, not because the party needed saving, but because his disciples needed to see his glory. Then he walks into the temple and drives out the merchants with a whip. Why? Because his Father's house had become a marketplace. Here's what I want you to see. Jesus cares about joy and holiness. He provides wine for a celebration, and he cleans house when worship is corrupted. Both are true and both matter. Chapter 3 brings us to Nicodemus. He was a Pharisee, a member of the Jewish ruling council, the teacher of Israel. If anyone had their spiritual life together, it was Nicodemus. Yet he came to Jesus at night, searching for something his religion could not provide. And Jesus cut straight to the heart. You must be born again. All of his credentials? Nothing. He needed supernatural work only God could do. This leads to the most famous verse in the Bible, John 3:16. You've probably heard it 1,000 times, but don't let its familiarity rob it of its power. God so loved, not just a little, but extravagantly, the world. Not just the religious, the rebellious world. He gave his only Son. The cross was not an accident. It was a gift. Whoever believes, that is, the door is open to anyone, shall not perish. There are only two destinies, but have eternal life, starting now and lasting forever. John chapter 3 ends with the starkest possible contrast. Verse 36. Believe in the Son and you have eternal life right now. Reject the Son and the wrath of God remains on you right now. There's no neutral ground. There's no undecided category. You've got the overview, but John 1 through 3 deserves more than a 5-minute video. I created a 14-day study guide walking you verse by verse through Cana, Nicodemus's midnight conversation, and what born again actually means. There are Greek word studies, reflection questions, and space to write. Link in the description. Subscribe for more Bible teaching. Grab that study guide to go deeper, and I'll see you in the next video.